Well, if you don't know who he is, you're sure soon going to find out who he is. But if you've been a fan of local public access, local television shows, I'm here with Michael Essany of the Michael Essany Show in Valparaiso, Indiana, and I'm proud to say a Regionite, a Region very own product. And Michael, thanks for being on our show.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thanks for coming out to visit.
You're welcome. Now, I got a couple questions here. A lot of people have been asking me, you know, you're going to get a chance maybe to interview Michael Essany. We want to know how it all started. How did the Michael Essany Show start?
It started on local public access, as you indicated, when I was 14. My dream ever since I was 12 was to one day go on and become the next king of late night. And given my proximity to Hollywood, it's not very easy to just start a show. You can't go right from Valparaiso to Burbank in Los Angeles. So I would have to create for local television something that would hopefully attract attention at the bottom and provide a platform for greater things later on.
Now, when you started doing the show, did you have in place your first few shows, or did you just go one show at a time?
When I met with one of the first cable access directors, he said, you have to put together 3 full broadcasts, bring to life this vision you're telling me you have, and if you can pull that off, we'll give you a time slot. Well, it took me about a full year to do 3 episodes of my show. But we had Ed McMahon, Lisa Gibbons, Timothy Dalton, Roger Moore was on the show, we had Jim Neighbors. Pretty good start. So I premiered at 15, and as of today, we've done, I think, 94 broadcasts. Over 90 stars have done the show.
And for those who have not seen the Michael Essany Show, can you just explain briefly what exactly people can expect on one of your shows?
The show's a late-night format. That format never really changed. It's an opening monologue, sketch, host chat with a sidekick. Although my sidekick, Mike Randazzo, is the only sidekick left in late night. So I guess that's sort of a unique feature of my show. And then a celebrity interview. Sometimes we'll have 2 stars on one show, but typically just one. The format is the same, but I think every host tries to bring his or her own flavor to the show. And what I try to do is bring a youthful perspective, but with some degree of maturity, so that you could reach audiences both young and old.
And the magic of television is you don't have to necessarily have a grandeur set to have a television show. We're sitting here in Michael's. Where are we sitting at here?
You're sitting in my living room. You're about 10 feet from my kitchen, actually, Nick. You have to do something clever to create attention, and my biggest fear when I got started was people would think, oh, this is another Wayne's World. So for the first several years on air, I never mentioned it was done in the house. Because when you see it on television,
sure,
you can't tell.
Sure.
I wanted to be taken seriously, so I didn't reveal the story until several years later.
Do you think it might have helped or hindered the show when people found out this was coming out of your own home, or what?
No, that's why I waited till it was taken seriously by Northwest Indiana, and people were already tuning in. Yeah, so the press was already positive.
Now, who were some of your favorite guests?
I love comedians. They're the best. You don't really have to work as a host when you have a star come out.
Right.
They give you fun stuff to work with. I remember we had Ray Romano and Carrot Top. Carrot Top's like a wind-up toy. You do this and it goes. I think all I said was, how are you? We had 20 minutes of great stuff.
Sure.
So comics are my best guests. And then I love when we have broadcast journalists on the show, like Katie Couric or Walter Cronkite. They're always fun. Always fun.
One of the first words I ever said as a child was Walter Cronkite. So in a unique way, I've always thought television would be in my blood too, and here we are doing around the region. But was there anyone that you almost had on the show but didn't get that you kind of wish you did?
Oh, there have been so many. I've always wanted one of the big boys in late night to come out, Jay or Dave. That hasn't worked out yet.
Okay.
I don't think there's any star I've attempted to book more than Oprah Winfrey.
Okay.
That hasn't worked yet. I'd love to have former President Jimmy Carter.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I'd be looking forward to that one as well. Okay, so what is your real, true, personally, your fascination in being the late night talk show king?
Well, I love people. I love exploring and listening and finding out, discovering what makes people tick. And I think that fascination has parlayed just a love of people into a love of broadcasting and communicating. So I've never really loved talk shows. I just loved what Johnny was able to do in late night. I loved the power of a late night show because it's a very magical thing. Going on television late at night, making people laugh, taking their minds off their worries for a little while. It's almost a form of public service.
Sure.
And I love it very much. And I couldn't imagine seeing myself doing anything else. Plus, I don't really know if I'm good at anything else. But steps can be taken not only to reduce holiday stress, but to lessen the recovery time as well. Let's face it, fellas. Let's be real honest here. We all need our moms or wives in some capacity every day. but they do an awful lot for us that we can very well do for ourselves. So, this holiday season, let's make a list. A list of specific measures we can take to help ease the load on Mom's back. But if, for some reason, you don't have time to do that, well, then you can just do what I plan to do and ask Mom to make the list for you.
Well, let's hope. But you are going to Valparaiso and getting a major in political science. And so
I'm a VU major, right, in political science, which helps with my broadcasting. So.
There you go. All right. Now, you were recently on Jay Leno. Can you give our viewers in Northwest Indiana what it was like to fly out there and be a host on or a guest on Jay Leno's late night talk show?
The highlight of my professional career. It's all downhill from here. I was a guest last April, and Jay was very gracious in having me come out. Brought my mom and dad with me. They sat in the audience. Lisa Gibbons, who's now executive producing my show on E, also came out and joined mom and dad in the audience. And when I turned that corner and Jay introduced me, it was just like the culmination of 5 years of hard work to get to that point. And this is before E came along. So it was great knowing that I was able to build up a local show to a level where it was acknowledged by one of my late night heroes, Jay Leno. And the best part was, Jay is an incredibly gracious guy, and he really does wish young people well. That's why I think that carries over. That's why he's gotten so far. And Jay put me at his desk to introduce that night's musical guest. So briefly, I got to host the Tonight Show.
Well, you do have ambitions that go beyond that. I think hopefully maybe getting one of those spots sometime in the future. Now, you'd mentioned your parents. Can you just briefly discuss or describe your parents for us?
Mom and Dad are the greatest parents in the world. They have supported and loved me both on camera and off since I started this venture. And Mom serves as my director for celebrity interviews. Dad is the stage manager, and they prepared incredible feasts for all of our guests. So if a star, can I be honest with you? Yeah. I don't think stars come here to see me. They come here for the food Mom and Dad prepare. That's just what and you know what our secret weapon is? Grandma.
Grandma.
We have a big star. We really want to make him happy. We bring Grandma down from Michigan. She prepares some legendary Italian meal. And so if you ever see my dad burning toast in the kitchen, it's because we don't have a very good guest that night. That's the giveaway.
That is wonderful. Now, you're now in your current show that you have. You basically, your parents and yourself are the producers of the show. Now that you're getting involved with some other productions that we're going to talk about here briefly, you have an input from other people. Now, how has that been for you? Kind of a new experience. How are you handling having other people's input on how things should be produced around you?
Well, E is hands-off as far as my talk show is concerned. They haven't brought in any comedy writers, no producers, no people to actually touch the talk show. E's job is to make the reality show chronicling the making of my local show. It's a show within a show. So the show still functions as it always has, but it's up to E as far as what clips of the talk show will make it to national air. A while back, I was on the phone with some publicists trying to book a celebrity for my show. This is about the 4th or 5th time I called her that week, and I was still getting a no. So finally, I got the publicist on the phone, and I heard the assistant say, "It's that Rocky Balboa of late-night television again." And I thought that was just the greatest compliment I've ever received.
The Michael Essany Show.
I'm actually a little bit nervous.
Coming in March.
Pre-show jitters.
Only on E.
I got you. This is great.
I got you. So, but for the most part, it's not anything like, Michael, can we have you do this and say it this way and things of that nature?
Oh, no, I host as I always have.
So when people see what's going to be on the entertainment channel, the E channel as it's known, your show, the Michael Essany Show, it's basically what you get. What you see is what you get.
Yes, the talk show portion, absolutely.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the E. How did the whole entire E channel come about?
It's a funny story. I mentioned Lisa Gibbons. She was actually the second celebrity ever to accept an interview request of mine. She was very gracious in accepting my request. We did the interview in the summer of '98. Okay. And we lost contact for a couple of years. Okay. Had a spot in Details magazine. And Lisa's
magazine.
And Lisa spotted the article. And I guess, typically I'm not a memorable person. Most people forget about me. But Lisa, for some reason, remembered me. Okay. And she looked at the article and she thought, wow, something really came of this thing. And so they graciously extended an invite. I keep using the word gracious because I can't think of anything better to describe Lisa Gibbons.
That's a wonderful word.
She extended an invite to join with her production company in hopes of developing the local show for a national audience. They pitched it to E, and E bought it right away.
So the reality show and the concept of, here's this young guy who has the ambitions, task of being the next late night talk show and doing it out of Midwest Indiana. I mean, that had to go well with them, being the fact that reality shows are real popular now.
Yeah, and I was very adamant about making sure that the show would remain true to its Northwest Indiana roots. I mean, there was a time when they wanted to do a lot of stuff other places, and I thought, this is where the show is. This is where my life is, and if you want the show to be an accurate representation of what it is that we do and who we are, then let's keep the show here. And I'm very proud of the fact that Northwest Indiana is going to be as big a star on this show as, I will be or my mom and dad will be. So it's great. This is one of the best places, I think, in the world to grow up, and I'm lucky to be here.
Oh, very, very well said. Now, you're probably the first person that I know of to ever have a national TV show before having a national TV show.
I never thought of it that way.
Can you give us your
Wow, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of ironic, isn't it, that it worked out that way. But actually, that was kind of sort of the plan, to create something that would draw a lot of attention to my home state of Indiana for building something that it lacked, and that was its own late-night talk show. So I always had imagined going from public access in Northwest Indiana to maybe a network affiliate in Chicago. But fortunately, I had this opportunity to establish a national presence so that once this project is through, I'll be done with public access. I won't be still doing a show in the living room.
Sure.
But I would love to stay here in the Midwest and Indiana. Chicago is a fantastic city. We were talking about this off air. You know exactly what you're talking about, and we discussed the potential of Chicago being the home of the next big late night show. I would love to do in late night for Chicago what Oprah has done for daytime in Chicago, and so that I hope will be my next goal.
Now, with that being, may I note something here? The backdrop here, though, is of New York. Why not Chicago? I'm just curious.
Couldn't find one for Chicago. We wouldn't have Valparaiso here because I think the tallest building is the Menards. So that wouldn't have worked out too well. The only options available to me were Paris, Manhattan, and Hawaii. So the Eiffel Tower and palm trees just didn't make sense for Valpo.
But it looks fantastic, and it's now been a staple of your show. So
my next guest, one of comedy's brightest.
Your next guest, who else was on?
Doris Roberts. Everybody loves Raymond.
Oh, really? I ran into her there in the green room, actually.
See, we saved you because you're famous, after all, for what's inside of your trunks.
That's right. Wait a second. That's not good.
He's one of comedy's brightest stars. He's here with us tonight, our first on-set guest of the season. Ladies and gentlemen, the true prop master, Carrot Top.
Michael, thanks, buddy.
How are you, sir?
Please hold your applause until the end of the show.
when you went to Jay Leno and the Hollywood experience, what was Tinseltown like?
Hollywood's an interesting place. I can't say it's for me. I don't love Hollywood. There's a lot of people in the business I do like that have cared for me very much and have looked out for me and have been supportive of me. But there's just a lot of pretension in that town. There's a lot of backstabbing and, a real lack of, I think integrity is the right word to use here. And that's why I would really love to stay true to my Midwestern roots. It's possible that I may have to relocate to the coast to do a show. The Tonight Show is done in Burbank. I would love to host that show. If Dave Letterman steps down and I have an opportunity, I would love to maybe go to New York to do that. But if I had it my way, I would be doing the show somewhere here in the Midwest because I think shows on the coast have gotten a little stale. Gotcha. They're not spontaneous anymore. Sure. And audiences out this way would be much more fresh and I think really enjoy the show better.
Sure. Yeah, point well made. Now, tell us a little bit of what people can expect on the E! Show.
The E! Show is my life, which was really surreal to watch at the end of the week all the things you had done a previous week. It's kind of weird. You'll see me booking the guests, writing the material, being a full-time college student. On the first episode, it's wild. I mean, when I looked at it, I got tired watching myself. And sometimes when you're doing something, you don't really realize what it is you're doing because you know how much when you're doing so many things. Sure. When Kelly Rowland of Destiny's Child came out to do the show, the only night she was able to come by was a weeknight. It was a class night for me. She was going to be here at like 10:30 that night. And so I had a test that day. I had a speech to deliver. And I only had about 15, 20 minutes between classes. And I had classes all day. So I was trying to find an empty classroom to research Kelly and do my questions between classes, getting ready to come home that night, having about an hour to prep the studio, get dressed, sit down, and do an interview with this Grammy-nominated recording star who's got a top album. So that's pressure, and that's the kind of stuff you'll see on the show.
Yeah, and not only did you have to pull that off literally, you had a bunch of cameras probably all around you.
Oh, in my face all the time. All the time.
That's incredible. Now, so the show is basically about you putting together the show, not necessarily about your show. How do you feel about that?
There's a little bit of the show. You will see some of the interview with Kelly Rowland. You'll see some of the monologue that night. You'll see some of the sketch. It's a half-an-hour show on E, and my local talk show already is a half an hour. So to blend talk and reality, they've got to show the making and the show itself. This will provide a great national platform and hopefully the opportunity to move beyond this next and do a more traditional late-night show.
Now, you have 6 weeks or 12 weeks?
Now, we've got 6 shows in the can.
6 shows in the can.
Right, and we'll see what comes of that.
Okay, and on top of that, can you give our viewers a little insight on the next 6 weeks? 6 weeks, who exactly you're going to have on the show?
You will see everyone from Kelly Rowland, I mentioned, to David Brenner, one of my comedic idols who came out to do the show, Supermodel Frederique. You know what she did? She came out, not only did an interview with me, she dressed me for the show. She took me shopping at the Westfield Mall in Maryville, picked out a suit for me, dressed me, came back to the house, did the interview. We've got Jewel coming up again on the show. It'll be her third appearance on my show now. Tom Green, of course, the always wacky Tom Green. And Tom Green and I went go-kart racing with the mayor at Zayo Island over in Valpo. So we do fun things with our guests as well as the talk show.
Now, if you get another show, Michael, your format might have to change. It can't be a half an hour, literally like you have it. I have to ask you before I ask one question, what kind of music do you like?
I have an eclectic taste in music. My technical knowledge of music is very limited, but my appreciation for it is very broad. If you want to go to easy listening, jazz, pop, rock.
So you're pretty diverse there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love ranging from Peter Gabriel to, the Stones.
Now you're talking. Because the reason I ask that is because most late night talk shows have a band and some music on there. How do you envision your national television late night talk show being?
I would love if I could maybe steal them from the Conan O'Brien show to have the Max Weinberg 7. Maybe not Max, but a band similar to that. I think a great swing band is wonderful in late night. And, just as important as the band leader is also important. So we're going to have a guy or a woman to come on. I think there hasn't been I don't know if there's been a female band leader yet or a female sidekick. So either I'll find a female sidekick or have Mike Randazzo undergo a sex change operation, whichever would be cheaper.
Yeah, it depends on the budget there.
Depends on the budget.
Figures always have to work out, right?
Yeah.
Now, so are you going to have any stupid pet tricks, things of that nature? I mean, I know it's still preliminary, but do you think about that?
Sure. One thing that is very important to me is providing an opportunity for some local talent to also find a break to the show. We have a wonderful stand-up comedian named Don Tersini, who's been on my show, the local show, several times. You'll see him on the second ever episode of my show now on E! I think one of the mistakes the late night guys are making is not providing an opportunity for upcoming talent to shine. They've made it too much about things that they shouldn't make it about. And I've always admired how Carson gave rise to so many stars. I can't really think of many people that Jay has started. Ray Romano had his roots in Letterman, but it should be noted that Ray Romano was on Carson before he was on Letterman. So you still got to give Johnny credit for Ray. But nonetheless, that's something I would love to do with my show, launch other stars, while I'm trying to launch myself.
That's noble, quite noble of you. One of the things people may not know of is your big fascination with Johnny Carson.
I love Johnny. Johnny retired when I was 10. I wish I could say I remember him better than I do. I have, I think, about a 12-volume set of tapes that I just got maybe about a year or so ago. And Johnny's the master. I've always said if talk show hosting was a sport, his mantle would be sagging from the weight of MVP awards. Johnny was just that good. So I hope to follow in his footsteps one day and hopefully restore some class and spontaneity to late night, because I think Johnny had a wonderful approach, and he was very good at making the guest the star. And I think a lot of hosts try to make themselves the star. That's really not what it's about.
Sure. No, very, very good point. Let's get back to the Michael Essany show briefly here. Can you give us any details on some of the more unique situations you've had occur on your show? Such as middle of the night, bacon boys showing up at the front door, things of that nature? The
hardest part of doing a show like this, essentially without a budget, is you never know what to expect. The Tonight Show tapes every afternoon at 4:30, I think. My show tapes whenever my guests can show up. You mentioned Kevin Bacon. Right. He and his brother were only able to show up at 3:30 in the morning because we don't have a budget to fly out guests at our convenience. Sure. So the Bacons were on their way up to Michigan for a tour. They had their last album out, and so the only time they were sort of passing through, where it wouldn't be more than 40 or 50 miles out of their way, was about 3:30 in the morning. Okay. They stayed after for breakfast. I guess this story has become somewhat legendary in the area now, and it's just sort of an example of what we do, what we have to go through. I've done interviews as early as 7 a.m., as late as 3 a.m., so, or technically 3 a.m. is early, but I've done interviews at midnight. I've done interviews without any sleep. It's been nuts.
Now, just to wrap things up, what kind of advice would you offer people out there who are looking to do something similar to what you're doing or have dreams?
Thank you for that question.
Sure.
A lot of people will say, be determined, work very hard, and you'll go a long way with that. That's only half of it. Determination alone can only get you so far. To pierce the armor surrounding, late night television, or whatever the goal may be for you, you have to combine a determined heart with a novel approach. Because most people can relate to my roots with my dream, in that I came from the Midwest, came out of nowhere basically, without many contacts, without a rich family, without all the breaks, without all the help. Almost like a little Rocky Balboa kind of story. But because of some ingenuity with the late night format, doing something to this extent, creating a show about celebrities and family, something that television hadn't already seen before. That was the creative element. Then the determination coupled with that sort of provided the momentum to build the show upwards. Because if you just have creativity but no determination, that's not going to go very far either. So determination and creativity should never be underestimated by any means.
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to thank you for your time that you're providing us for the show. And there's a saying that I go by, and it goes something like this. It takes talent to get to the top, but it takes character to stay there. And Michael, I see nothing but a long success for you on the top. So,
and same to you.
Thank you for your time, and we appreciate it. And from Valparaiso, Indiana, I'm Nick Mantis, and we'll be back with more of Around the Region.